Summary of the Frozen River, a novel written by Ariel Lawhon. Part 1. What's Past is Prologue. In the unforgiving embrace of late November, the Kennebec River bore witness to a macabre journey. A lifeless body, victim to hasty choices and bitter circumstance, floated downstream. The river, already adorned with treacherous chunks of ice, seemed to seize the man in its icy grasp. The night was a symphony of desolation, bitter winds and numbing frost weaving a melancholic tapestry. The man's reckless haste and impatience had led him into the clutches of assailants concealed in the forest. His tracks in the snow marked an easily traceable path, a fatal misstep that culminated in a struggle, a tumble into the river, and an entwining of his brown hair with the elements. As the man's body drifted along, the river slowed, succumbing to the relentless freeze. An early winter had descended upon Hallowell, Maine, unbeknownst to its slumbering residents. The deceased, frozen in a grim tableau, became an unwitting participant in the legendary year of the long winter. While the town slept, a fox, drawn by the moonlight, cautiously stepped onto the icy riverbank. The clever creature, familiar with the capricious nature of the river, approached the frozen figure. With a tilt of her head, the fox examined the tangled hair, frozen in disarray. Satisfied that danger lingered not in the frosty air, the fox lifted her nose and began to howl, a mournful cry echoing in the stillness of the night. Her howl, a harbinger of the impending long winter, blended with the bitter winds, becoming a haunting refrain in the legend of Hallowell. The frozen tableau, with the man entombed in ice and the fox's poignant howl, etched itself into the town's collective memory. A somber tale of a tragic night when the river froze early, and a life was claimed by its icy tendrils. Clark Forge. In the small, tight-knit community of Hallowell, where the rhythm of life was set by the seasons and the toil of the land, Martha Ballard held a unique and revered role. As the midwife, her hands had ushered countless lives into the world, each birth etching another chapter into the collective history of the town. On this particular night, Martha found herself attending to Betsy Clark, a woman well acquainted with the throes of labor. "You need not fear," Martha assured Betsy, her voice a calm reassurance. "In all my years attending women in childbirth, I have never lost a mother." Betsy, eyes wide with a mixture of anticipation and fear, nodded hesitantly. Martha understood the universal anxiety that accompanied the miracle of birth. Every laboring woman, no matter how many times she had been through it, faced the primal fear of the unknown. As Betsy's contractions quickened, Martha worked with an urgency honed by years of experience. John Cowan, the young blacksmith's apprentice, had fetched her in haste, and now the room buzzed with the anticipation of a new life entering the world. Betsy's children were known for their swift arrivals, and tonight was no exception. The room, dimly lit by the flickering glow of the hearth, became a stage for the ancient dance of childbirth. Betsy's mother, sisters, cousin, and aunt, all gathered to support and assist. In this sacred space, men had no place. Betsy's husband, Charles, retreated to his forge, his frustration pounded into molten metal on the anvil. With each contraction, Martha guided Betsy, offering words of encouragement. "It's time," she declared, her warm hands gently pressing Betsy's knees apart. The air was thick with the scent of sweat, and the room echoed with the primal sounds of childbirth. Martha's hands moved with practiced precision, wiping away blood and water, providing comfort and stability. As the moment of birth neared, the room pulsed with a silent energy. Betsy's sisters moved into position, supporting her legs as Martha coached her through the final, intense pushes. And then, with a rush of life, the baby crowned, a slick, bald head emerging into Martha's experienced hands. "There's your baby," Martha announced, holding the tiny, squirming bundle. Betsy, catching her breath, inquired about the gender. "Does that mean it's another girl?" she asked, her voice tinged with disappointment. Charles, in the midst of his own desires for a son, had a particular expectation. Martha, ever the pragmatist, responded, "It means nothing." She maintained her focus on the task at hand, gently guiding the baby's emergence. The room held its breath until the final push, and then, with a cry that filled the air, the baby was born, a daughter. "Oh," Betsy sighed, a mix of relief and disappointment. Martha, undeterred, proceeded with the meticulous post-birth rituals. She cut the umbilical cord, tied it off, and ensured the baby's health with a quick examination. Betsy's women, a seamless team, attended to the mother, cleaning her, changing cloths, and readying her for the next phase of motherhood. As Betsy nursed her newborn daughter, Martha observed the scene with a mix of satisfaction and concern. The dynamics of the Clark family, the unspoken desires and expectations, lingered in the air. Charles, desperate for a son, and Betsy, eager to please her husband, navigated the delicate balance of familial expectations. With the immediate tasks completed, Martha took a moment to sit by the hearth and savor a cup of now cold tea. The room, still charged with the energy of birth, settled into a rhythm of quiet murmurs and the occasional snore. Betsy's women, having tended to the immediate needs, slipped away to rest, leaving Martha alone with her thoughts. The night air outside was crisp and bracing as Martha ventured out to check on Charles in his forge. The rhythmic clanging of the hammer against hot iron greeted her. Charles, a man driven by the need for a son to assist in his trade, looked up with a mix of desperation and hope in his eyes. "Does my wife live?" he asked urgently, his concern etched across his face. Martha, ever the bearer of both good and challenging news, reassured him. Betsy was well, the baby healthy, but the gender was not what Charles had hoped for. "And the child?" he inquired, hope and trepidation warring in his eyes. Martha's response, "She has very strong lungs," conveyed the truth without explicitly addressing Charles's unspoken disappointment. The truth, however, could not be avoided. As Martha spoke of the newborn's gender, Charles's expression crumbled. The weight of his desire for a son, compounded by the demands of his forge, pressed upon him. Martha, a silent observer, recognized the futility of reasoning with a man blinded by societal expectations. In a moment of vulnerability, Charles admitted, "I'd hoped for a son. Because of the forge, I need help. I do love my daughters." Martha, understanding the complex interplay of tradition and necessity, offered a simple truth. "You have John Cowan for help. And you may yet have a son." But Charles, his determination unwavering, vowed to try again for a son. Martha, the wise observer, cautioned him on the timing and the unpredictability of God's choices. In the dim glow of the forge, Martha's hand on Charles's forearm conveyed a silent message about the gentleness and patience required in the face of life's uncertainties. As Martha returned to the cabin, the night wore on, and the sounds of childbirth gave way to the settling hush of early morning. The women, having ensured Betsy's comfort, retired to rest in shifts, leaving Martha alone with her thoughts. She removed her soiled apron, washed her hands, and took a moment to observe the mother and child, a new chapter written in the story of Hallowell. In the quiet moments before dawn, Martha stretched out on a straw pallet, contemplating the intricacies of life and birth. The familiar routine of a celebratory meal would follow, marking the culmination of this night's journey. Yet, before Martha could fully surrender to sleep, a calloused hand on her shoulder jolted her awake. Charles stood there, lantern in hand, urgency etched across his face. Someone had come with urgent news. An accident had occurred, and Martha was needed in town immediately. As Martha bundled up against the biting cold, she couldn't help but wonder about the threads of fate weaving through the lives of those she served. The night, which began with the cries of a newborn, now beckoned Martha into the unknown, where the tapestry of life continued to unfold in ways both expected and unforeseen.